My good morning. The sun hasn't even gotten up. My name is Roy Hulan. I ran for U.S. Senator this spring, 2016, to stop the ticking time bombs and put our economy back on track for a bright new day instead of all things ending. Let me educate you on the ticking time bombs and give you the rest of the story. Part 4, the war on co-ops. Right-to-work laws also go after older workers by defunding labor unions. I've actually studied labor unions. I've gone through the contracts. Labor unions historically have protected senior workers. By protecting the senior workers, unions use them to lift the cap or ceiling. With the ceiling lifted, other workers' wages are usually lifted as the new wage scale goes in line with the new higher cap. Unions raise the cap to lift the rest, to increase union members' income by 10 to 15% above non-union workers. When conservative Governor Scott Walker went after Wisconsin's public unions, he was doing a cap and slide, just like I explained earlier, against every hardworking person in this country. When you have this large of a group, it goes against everyone. We know that's because Scott Walker did this, sending huge shockwaves through the labor sector for a whole year. Wage increases were near zero that year. This held back consumer confidence and consumption, severely slowing down the recovery coming out of the 2009 recession. I love supply-siders like Rand Paul, who follow the great economists in her mind, Ayn Rand, who was a philosopher and not an economist. Supply-side economics is not based on Adam Smith because in his second book, The Science of Economics was created. When Adam Smith applied Immanuel Kant's rights equals duties to economics. Today, all economics are based on supply equaling demand, S equal D, because demand is a check and balance to supply. Without demand, there can be no supply. Whether we are talking about Keynesian economics, C plus I plus G equals GDP, where C plus I plus G equals national demand, and GDP is national supply, or monetary theory, NV equals PQ, where NV is money supply times velocity of money equaling N equals national demand again, and PQ is production quotient or national supply. Both are S equals D. I could have sworn I saw pictures of like 80,000 folks taking over Wisconsin State Capitol. Did you see it? The conservatively funded media didn't show one photo. Instead, they played a Koch anti-labor advertisement. Talk about rigged. Most people don't realize that unions are actually a type of business called a co-op. Co-ops are a business model that allows individuals like you and I to combine our production and our resources, set standards, usually high, to gain perceived higher value for their goods, work, and services. Thus, the senior workers in a union become the gatekeeper not only for the union, but for quality control for the business. The war on co-ops started in 1974 with Richard M. Nixon. Richard Nixon hired Roy L. Butz in 1974 to change the agricultural model from the superior goods model to the always lower price model to hide the fact that states' rights, his programs, were having negative effect on our economy. Now, instead of having the federal money go directly to local government, it went through states and governors. Adding a middleman was increasing government taxes in the form of higher sales tax that consumers were paying. We started to hear a new word called stagflation being said then. We had stagflation because grocery receipts were pinching consumers across the country. One of the ways government promotes the always lower price game is through promoting overproduction, which drives down prices and margins. Always lower prices is always lower margins until you have a monopoly. Lower margins drive out small producers who need the higher margins to operate and promotes collapse to consolidate monopolization. Nothing does that better than a good old-fashioned recession. Yes, Trump, you like recessions, but recessions are not good for small businesses. Since Roy L. Butts had changed our agricultural system to help, rural portion of the U.S. GDP has gone from 32% in 1974 down to just 10% in 2010, a 22% decrease in rural wealth, and the average farm acreage went from 160 acres to 1,000 acres. To put this in perspective, those who live on 90% of the U.S. get just 10% of the U.S. wealth. Clearly, state government's growth has been on the backs of farmers and rural folk for the last 40 years. With that, so has rural flight has gone ever higher and higher. Many rural communities are becoming or are ghost towns, like those in eastern Kentucky. No one is more anti-rural and individual family farmer than conservative state rights folks. Has it ever occurred to any one of you that these states' rights folks, conservatives, are blaming your great-great-granddaddy for the Civil War loss? There had to be a reason why the South lost the war. It did. Even though they had the best generals, Lee, Stonewall Jackson, Forrest, Bragg, they had the best fighting men. The Tennessee was unbeaten until they had to stay out in an ice storm before Richmond, Kentucky. Maybe the reason the South lost the Civil War was because of an inept states' rights government, which undermined the war effort. In 1965, the federal government, it took just 5 months for a federal program to be up and running. During this last recession, the federal stimulus program took up to 18 months to get to the local governments up and running and start to work because of state governors holding back money, blunting the effectiveness of the federal stimulus. The food we produce in mass quantities today seems to be more about diabetes and making folks fat and unhappy. HELP is always worse and worse, like our food nutrition, creating a health ticking time bomb. Don't you think it's time to change to better and better by supporting and protecting co-ops and those who produce superior goods? Most folks could care less about Wall Street or Washington. I ran to stop the ticking time bombs facing our country. You now know, I know you, that none of the candidates running for president are your choice. Why we have these candidates instead of your choice is what this series tries to explain. You now know the playing field, the players, and now the one more headwind keeping our economy from growing. The question is, this presidential and every election, who are for the killers and who are for the murderers? Because each clearly is for one. And which group is best for us hardworking folks? The Archie Bunkers and the Meatheads. My name is Rory Hulan, and you have a good and blessed day.